Hey, I'm Abby and welcome back to the Life Work Balance YouTube channel. Today I'm going to share with you my top 10 pieces of resume advice that I give most frequently when I work with individuals on creating or modifying their resumes. Before I jump into those 10 tips, please remember to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if you're looking forward to learning about those tips so that you can quickly do the same. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well as the bell so that you can receive life work balance advice delivered directly to you every Sunday. So the way I've organized these tips is in easiest to hardest things to modify on your resume. So starting off with tip number 1 being the easiest thing that you can do to improve your resume overall is to remove your objective or your summary from the beginning of your resume. You want to think of your resume as exclusive real estate. You have limited space to be able to convey who you are, what you've done in the past, and how it's relevant to this position that you're applying to. And so having a big chunk of text at the very beginning of your resume is a great way to just distract the reader right off the bat. You want to make your resume as readable as possible. In order to do this, you want big chunks of text that usually come in the form of summaries removed. So the first and easiest thing that you can do is to completely get rid of your objective statement, your executive summary, or whatever it is that you might call it that appears at the very top of your resume. However, if you choose to keep this summary or this objective, that's perfectly fine. However, my one piece of advice is to tailor it specifically to the job that you're applying to. In most cases, these summaries are really vague and they don't necessarily add to your resume by being tailored specifically to the position that you're applying to. So if you choose to keep the summary or the statement, whatever it might be, ensure that it is specific to the job that you're applying to, not necessarily specific to the industry that you're applying to. Most of the time, these summaries or statements are skipped by the reader. So you need to give them a reason not to skip it if you keep it in there. Having it specific to the job posting that you've applied to will give the reader more incentive to actually read it. My second tip is to remove anything regarding references. So easily delete this off your resume. If you have references listed, delete them. If you have the phrase references available upon request, delete it. Both of those things are taking up valuable real estate that you would be able to use differently or more effectively later on. If you have references available upon request on your resume, that's actually something that's implied in the job application or interview process. So you don't need to put that on your resume because if they're going to ask you for references, it's assumed that you will be giving them. So you don't need that little sentence or blurb taking up space on your resume. I have a video specifically about how to contact references when you are going to list them as a reference. So if you are in a place where you're getting ready to list references or you have people in mind who you would like to have as references, check out that video so that you can contact them ahead of time so they aren't blindsided by a call from someone wondering about you and maybe asking some questions that could put them in a difficult or uncomfortable position. My third tip when it comes to the easiest thing that you could probably do when it comes to editing your resume is focus on the formatting and keeping it simple. Formatting can easily get out of control. You do not necessarily want to use a template because templates can make things wonky, but you want to keep things as simple and straightforward as possible. You want things to be consistent across all of your documentation. So if you're submitting a cover letter and a resume, you want your header to be the same. You want your font styles and sizes to be the same. You don't want to be using a bunch of different colors or graphics on your resume. Use narrow margins so that you can really take advantage of all of the space available for your resume. The easiest piece of advice that I can give when it comes to formatting your resume is don't get fancy, keep it simple. I actually have a free ebook that is available for download on my website. It goes into tips for your resume on how you can beat the 6 seconds, which I'll get into a little bit later in this video. But if you're looking for specific formatting tips, please go ahead and download that resume ebook and you will be able to use that while you're creating and formatting your own resume. I also have a free master resume template available on my website for download as well. So if you're just lost at where to begin when it comes to formatting your resume, that's a really good place to start too. My fourth piece of advice that I usually give to people that I'm working with on their resumes is to title their work experience section as relevant professional experience. The reason why I recommend using the words relevant professional experience rather than work experience or work history is because the word relevant can help explain gaps. If you use the word relevant in your header for this section, it's assumed that you're only including work experience that is relevant or professional experience that is relevant to the job that you're applying to. You may have other experience within those time frames, but you're not listing them because it's not relevant to the job that you're applying to. I also recommend listing professional experience rather than work experience or paid experience because professional experience doesn't necessarily mean paid experience. So you will likely show up in a professional manner or in a professional capacity when you are volunteering for something, when you've been in an unpaid internship, or when you've been in a paid job. So having that section, relevant professional experience, you can include only experience that is relevant to the job that you're applying to, which can help you manage any gaps in your employment history. And you can include any type of experience you have, not just paid experience. So this could be volunteer experience, unpaid experience, and paid experience. If you do have significant gaps in your employment history and you would like to address it, your resume is not the place to do that. Your cover letter is the place to do that. So if you have significant gaps that you do need to address, bring it up in your cover letter. If you're looking for a video on how you can write a cover letter, please check out my video on how to write cover letters, and I even have an example of mine of what sorts of information you could include on a cover letter. So I have my own personal cover letter that I share in this video that could help you craft or at least modify your cover letter so that it is an impactful and effective document and doesn't waste anyone's time, yours or the people who are reviewing your application. My fifth tip for how you can improve your resume is to use bullet points. Try to get away from any big chunks of text. I try to have every bullet point be 1, maybe 2 lines at max, but you want about 3 to 5 bullet points per position or experience that you have listed on your resume. Get rid of those big chunks of text. People who are looking at your resume, when they see those big chunks of text, they might scan it for keywords, but they're not actually reading the content. When you have it separated into bullet points, it's way easier to read, it's more enjoyable to read, and it's much easier to really be able to explain your impact in a position than someone having to sift through a paragraph of information. When you're using bullet points, like I said, I recommend 3 to 5 bullet points per position. This really forces you to get specific, to include only the relevant information for this position that you're applying to. While you may have 15 bullet points on your master resume version for this particular work experience or professional experience, you only want to use 3 to 5 that are relevant to the job that you're applying to on your tailored resume. So if you're hearing me talk about master resumes and tailored resumes and you're wondering what the difference is, I actually have a video on each of those describing what a master resume is and how you can write one, and then how you can write a tailored resume as well. Essentially, your master resume is your entire history of professional experience and education. This document could be many pages long. A tailored resume is the type of resume that you would like to submit to any job application. This is a much shorter and condensed version that is tailored specifically to the job that you're applying to and only includes relevant information to the job that you are applying to. Having your information organized in bullet points will allow you the ability to be very particular about which ones you include and which ones you don't on your tailored resume. My sixth tip, or most common piece of resume advice that I give to clients, is around the use of poor action words. While you're working on modifying your resume, you want to reevaluate your descriptions of the work that you have done. Sometimes we can get caught up in our own flowery language where we're maybe coming off as too sophisticated or too educated, and that can actually be difficult for the reader, the hiring manager, the recruiter, someone on the organization's end, to just filter through that flowery language. Using fancy big words can actually minimize the impact of the work that you're trying to get across in your resume on the reader because they're caught up on that flowery language. Simplicity can drive stronger impressions because the person who's reading your resume knows exactly what you did without all of that mumbo jumbo flowery language on your resume. So keep it simple, keep it straightforward. And when you're deciding which action words to use, be very strategic about not using the exact same action word, like responsible for, at the beginning of every single bullet point. You can easily do a quick Google search of action words to use in your resume, and you'll be able to find very common words that maybe you haven't used on your resume in the past. And you'll want to make sure that you're changing it up throughout your resume so it's not the exact same words and language in every single bullet point or every single job description that you've got on your resume. Along these same lines, my 7th tip is to be more precise when it comes to writing any of the bullet points that you have under each job or work or professional experience. When it comes to being more precise and less vague, that means using metrics or being able to quantify your experience in some way. So how is what you're writing and sharing on your resume actually being measured? Saying something like, I was the top salesperson in my group, sounds great, but doesn't really tell us, the readers, anything. Instead, you could say something like, grossed highest sales on a 20-member team for 3 years in a row. So highest sales, 20-member team, 3 years in a row. Those are all metrics or quantifiable data that tells the reader that you really had an impact. Or you could say something like, improved the team's sales by 34%. Again, quantifying or using numbers or data to really describe your impact is a great way to be more precise on your resume and to tell the reader that you actually were good at what you were doing and that you will bring this to your new job. Which brings me into tip number 8, which is truly describe your impact. In order to describe your impact, you need to be precise. You want to describe how your work or what you brought to the table significantly impacted your team, your organization, your clients or customers. These are not necessarily achievements, so you don't necessarily need to include achievements unless you can quantify their impact. So people, hiring managers or recruiters want to recruit and bring people on who have had impact on their teams, their organizations, etc. in the past, with the hopes that they can do the same thing in this new organization. So you want to make sure that you can describe your impact in an effective way on your resume. Now, this can sometimes be hard to do, which is why people may choose to have someone else write their resume, which I think is a terrible idea. Instead, I would recommend working with someone like me, a career coach, who can help you reframe the work that you've done in a more impactful and effective way. So if this is something that you're struggling with, you're wondering how you can be more precise or how you can really quantify your impact in a written format on your resume, reach out to me or reach out to someone who has experience doing this. I'd love to work with you on helping you update your resume, providing you with advice or feedback on how you can update your resume. But having someone else write your resume just minimizes the overall impact that you have on this process. All right, 2 more tips. These are kind of the hardest things to do when it comes to modifying your resume, but these are still tips that I commonly provide to people when I'm reviewing their resumes for them. The first is try to cut your resume down to 1 page, 2 pages max. The reason this is tip 9 is because this is so hard to do. Sometimes we have resumes that are 2, 3, 4 pages long, and that is way too long. You have a resume that is 2 pages max, but ideally 1 page. Your resume is just a brief snapshot into your experience that you have that you're bringing to this new position. You want to make sure that it's a tailored resume, so it only includes the relevant information for the specific position that you're applying to. So you shouldn't need a lot of additional space to be able to convey that message. Which then leads me into my 10th and final most common piece of advice, which is around the 6-second rule. I mentioned this earlier in this video. The 6-second rule is this concept that someone is reviewing your resume for the first time and only takes 6 seconds to look at it. If someone is spending 6 seconds looking at your resume and it is 4 pages long, that is about 1.5 to 2 seconds per page, which is not enough time to actually take in any valuable information from each of those pages. Or that means the person is spending all of their 6 seconds on the first page and they're skipping pages 2, 3, and 4 altogether. So when hiring managers or recruiters or someone is looking at a resume for the very first time, they traditionally spend about 6 seconds evaluating the information on the resume and making a quick decision on if someone is the right fit or not for the position. So your resume needs to be clean, simple, concise, relevant, and straightforward for the reader to really be able to understand how you are going to bring the most to this position, why you are the best fit for this position and the strongest candidate. It needs to be clean, simple, and easy to read. Bullet points are important. Formatting is important. All the things that I mentioned before in this video help the reader in that 6 seconds that they give the first review of a resume enough information in an easy, clean format to be able to make a decision on if you are the right fit for the position or not. The reason this is my 10th tip is because this is the hardest thing for people to actually wrap their minds around and execute on their resume. If you only have 6 seconds, how do you actually put all of these pieces together to make those 6 seconds really count? So again, like I mentioned earlier, I have my resume ebook that is for free for download on my website. So if you haven't downloaded it already, please check it out. I've linked to it in the description box below. It is a great resource to help you really determine what you need on your resume, what you don't need on your resume, how to format it, what types of action words you could use, etc. So if you're looking for another free resource, check that out in the description box below. If you are looking for a little bit more hands-on, one-on-one help with updating your resume and tailoring it specifically to a job posting, please reach out to me directly. I've linked to my email and my website in the description box below as well. I would love to work with you and give you that one-on-one coaching on how you can improve your resume. Again, I don't recommend having someone else write your resume. So I am not a resume writer and I will not be writing your resume for you. However, I will be able to work with you through one or more sessions to really create a tailored resume for a specific job that you would like to apply to. So with that being said, hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, or ideas on these 10 tips or any other tips that you've heard from others when it comes to writing your resumes, please throw them in the comments box below. I love receiving comments. I do my best to respond to each of them individually. So if you do leave me a comment, I will do my best to get back to you. If you haven't already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well as the bell so that you can receive life, work, balance advice delivered directly to you every Sunday. Thanks, and I'll see you next week.